Hello, hello. Welcome to Yellowjackets night.
We are so excited to have you all join us for this special advanced screening and Q&A with the cast of Showtime's thrilling, intense, incredible new coming-of-age series, Yellowjackets.
Honestly, I have been itching to talk about this show since the moment we saw it, and I cannot wait to hear from the cast about these first two episodes because, wow, I think I watched most of episode 1 through my fingers and then immediately hit play on episode 2 because it is that good. I could not stop.
Well, now we unfortunately have to wait for episode 3, but in the meantime, we have the Yellowjackets themselves here to talk about their incredibly compelling characters and, you know, maybe share some survival hacks.
Yeah, I don't know that I really want these kind of hacks.
I'm just saying you can't plan for these things.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, when we were told about the show, we knew it was for an ATX TV audience. It's stylistic, smart, interesting, made by some serious TV talent and starring a slew of badass ladies.
Okay, let's dive in. Thank you again to our partners at Showtime for making this event possible and for turning us on to one of our favorite new shows. And remember to tune in Sundays at 10/9 Central for new episodes only on Showtime.
Please enjoy this conversation with the cast of Yellowjackets.
I'll never forget the day I heard their plane had gone missing. What do you think really happened out there?
All I know is that what happened was a tragedy. Those girls were special. They were champions.
I used to think all the sex, the drinking, the drugs, I used to think I did those things because of what happened out there, what I saw, what I did. Hello, Misty, you crazy bitch. It's been a while. I take it you know why I'm here.
Okay, I'm out of here.
We agreed, say no more than we have to. The truth is, the plane crashed. A bunch of my friends died. And then the rest of us starved and scavenged and prayed until they finally found us.
I think we both know there's more to it than that. I think it'll be good to reconnect with some old friends.
Hi, I'm Melanie McFarland, the TV critic for Salon.com, and I am also very pleased to be moderating this panel for Yellowjackets. Truly exciting new drama that is currently on Showtime. So without further ado, let's meet the cast. So joining us today in order is Ella Purnell, who plays Jackie, the team captain. Hi, Ella.
Hi.
We have Samantha Hanratty, who plays Misty.
Hello.
Very bright. Nice to see you. So now we have Jasmin Savoy Brown, who plays Thaisa. Oh, hi, Jasmin. And then we have two Sophies. First, we have Sophie Nélisse, who plays Shauna.
Hi.
And then we have Sophie Thatcher, who plays Natalie.
Hello.
And then we have Stephen Krueger, who plays Yellowjackets assistant coach, Ben Scott.
Hey.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for diving into this panel. I'm sure there's a lot of questions people have after those first two episodes. It bears mentioning today that everybody who's here today is the 1996 versions of their characters. For example, the 2021 version of Sophie Nélisse's character, Shauna, is Melanie Linsky. And the modern day counterpart to Sophie Thatcher's character, Natalie, is Juliette Lewis. And then Jasmin's character, Thaisa, is played by Tawny Cypress. And then we have Samantha's character, Misty, who's played by Christina Ricci. Now, the reason that I'm bringing all of this up is because my first question is, were you able to meet your adult counterparts before production began? And how did that help inform how each of you played your characters?
Yes.
Okay, that's a very long intro, but please.
We're all
Go right
cheering.
ahead.
We're all going, oh, you go ahead. Oh, you go ahead in our head. We had a cast dinner in 2019, right before we shot the pilot, and that's the first time we all met. At least it's the first time I met Tawny. I assume that's the first time you guys met your counterparts too. And that was cool. And then when we got to Vancouver to shoot the rest of the season, I'll just speak for myself. Tawny and I got together, we got lunch, and we went on a couple walks, and yeah, we discussed kind of our approach to Thaisa, which was super similar. We didn't really have to talk about it that much. The things we collaborated on more were small moments that we both thought were important to make it clear this is the same person. Like, do we say the word either, or do we say the word either? How do we stand? How do we, just more small things that would like tie it all together.
Yeah, same for Melanie and I. We met before the show started to grab coffee and just make sure we were on the same page concerning the character. Just little things that were so random. I remember one day being on set, and I'm left-handed when I write, and I was like, oh, I don't know if Melanie writes with her right hand, and then I had to text her and be like, what hand do you use? Like little things you don't think of. But Melanie was great, not just on like a character level, but just like a human being level, to just keep in touch with us throughout the whole show. She wrote me all the time to make sure that all of the cast was okay with like hair and makeup and the vibe on set and the new directors coming in. And so it was just really comforting to have this safe person and around.
Juliet and I had a bunch of phone calls, and I feel like immediately we were pretty much on the same page, like artistically and emotionally. We shared a playlist, and it had some of the same songs, which was
That's
crazy
so cool.
to get into the mindset of Natalie. We had some PJ Harvey, some random demos. I brought up like the replacements, but music is really important to both of us, so that helped get into that headspace pretty quick.
Yeah, Christina, I met her the first time when we were doing wig fittings, and so that was just really fun, because just getting to figure out what we were gonna do for Misty's look, and getting just even like the hair color. We both wanted to have like the same hair color. Like she really hasn't changed her hair color much over the years, and both having the curly hair and the glasses and little things about the look, and I know for the show I have like a little bit of a freckle here that is Christina's got that freckle, and little things like that, and then honestly we just stayed in touch as friends throughout it, and we all went whale watching at one point, which was fun, and just having nice like bonding experiences. But it was really cool to hear from crewmates being like, oh, like you guys both like push your glasses up, and I was like, I don't even know that we both did that. That's so cool that we
You
both
didn't
like
plan that?
What? No,
You didn't
no,
plan
but
that? That's crazy.
No, but once I found out that she was doing it, I definitely started doing it more. I was like, every scene, I was like, but yeah.
That's great. Now, Ella and Stephen, we have not met your 2021 characters, which may or may not mean anything. However, in the interim, I'm wondering what you did to formulate these personalities. Like, what did you do to prepare for these characters?
No.
I hate when people do that. Just throw me under the bus. I didn't do all that much. I mean, I had like I actually found it hard getting into the 90s spirit of it. Like I was listening to some 90s music and like, I don't know, just kind of remembering what it was like to be 17 and be going through all of that like teen angst. And I think the biggest thing for my character was her relationship with Shauna. So me and Sophie just hung out and became friends, and that was it really for my prep. Oh, that sounds so unprofessional.
Really deep preparation. I think I mainly focused on one of the big things that happens to Ben Scott, of course, is that he has this traumatic injury where he loses his leg in the second episode. So I just wanted to make sure that I did a lot of research kind of going into that so that I could, do this as authentically and realistically as possible and kind of honor that, that type of injury. I spent a lot of time just kind of researching, both the physical effects and then the mental and the emotional effects as well of, what somebody goes through when they have a traumatic injury like that. I actually reached out to a couple of amputees that, you know, I found online through YouTube and kind of spoke with them back and forth as well about their specific experiences. And yeah, I think that was kind of the bulk of my prep.
Mm-hmm. This is a very interesting series to watch right now as people are preparing to go back to, say, getting on planes. And I know, for instance, when Lost came out, that was something that, you know, people were like, oh, this really changes my relationship with air travel. And I'm wondering, for each of you, as you went into this production, what were some of the things that you prepared for just in terms of dealing with the logistics of the actual scene where all that happened, getting out, figuring out how to, you know, to plan triage? This is mostly for Samantha, I'm guessing, but everyone else, like, how did you do to prepare for that scene? What did you do?
I mean, the first day that we got to location for the second episode, we got to see what the plane crash looked like. Mm-hmm. And then they had us go through a bunch of rehearsals that, I don't know about you guys, but I was not prepared to do. Like, I didn't realize we were doing full-on rehearsals that day, and it became very intense and very real really quickly.
Part of it was they did such a good job of like actually, I mean, I thought they were going to skimp on like the set. I mean, we showed up and there was like an actual plane cut into 3 pieces. I mean, do you guys remember there was like fire explosions everywhere, like smoke everywhere? I was like, you don't have to pretend very much. Like, this is pretty terrifying.
Yeah, it really was. Like, yeah, seeing it all. I mean, we had such an amazing crew, and like they just put together this set that really, when you step on, we all were kind of like, you know, and then we saw it and we were like, shit, it's like, this is crazy, this is scary, you know. And yeah, and you guys,
even the flying part, you guys remember in the pilot, I think it was my first day on set when I showed up, and like the fuselage of the plane is like on that like rig thing that, you know, I'm like, they're not putting us in there, right? No.
Yeah, they had us like 20 feet in the air. We had to like go up all these stairs, and then it shook, and
it was
anxiety inducing.
Intrusive.
Yeah,
and this whole cast is incredible, as you have seen. Everyone gave it 100% from rehearsal, which gave everyone else permission. There was like the sense of, are we gonna scream? What are we gonna do? And then one person did. And
like, I remember that time as well. I think like some of us, it was like the first time we ever met, and we were all like, oh, not the first time we ever met, but the first time we'd done like a really emotional, intense, like traumatizing scene. And everyone's like a little self-conscious and in their head. And then I think it was Jasmin, it was one of us, was like, should we just scream on 3? Yeah. We went 1, 2, 3, and all just like hardcore scream at the top of our lungs, just like get that, you know, get over that little like bump there.
And then
how many times
screaming for a week?
I was gonna say, how many times did you have to film those scenes? Did you have to recreate that experience over and over again, or was it just going in a couple of takes, that's it?
We have filmed the actual crash multiple times.
I think it took like 2 days to
get
that whole montage of the second episode. It took 2 days to do the whole thing from start.
And it felt like we did. I remember when we all watched like a little glimpse of the second episode, and we saw that whole bit. We were all kind of like, that's it, because it felt like we were dying in there. Like, it felt like we were screaming and sobbing, and it felt very hard. And then when we watched it, we were like, oh, okay. But yeah, it's like a whole like two days and a half, like redoing like from top to bottom the whole scene, and then adding the explosions. And yeah, it was.
And a lot of people really actually got injured, just like
Courtney.
A little bit, but bloody, bruised knees, scratches. I think Courtney is like, has a scar.
Courtney is the most injured person on this set. Every day is a new injury.
Yeah. Can't say she didn't give it her all.
Yeah, the stunts people were like literally on fire. They're like, oh yeah, there's this person that's gonna run by you. Just be mindful because they're on fire. And I was like, oh, cool. The stunts people were insane on the show.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, even obviously there are stunts people, but this seems like a very physically demanding production for all of you. Lots of time, you know, just going back and forth in the woods. Except for you, Stephen, it looks like you got to be carried a lot. You got to.
Yeah, just keep watching. See how much it can be carried.
But so my question is, I know we've been talking about prep work you did for the characters, but did any of you have any kind of experience coming in, are any of you avid hikers? Did they say, hey, you're going to want to bump up your cardio before production starts or anything like that? Or am I just
Okay,
thinking
you
like
should
that
have
because
seen
I
us-
was actually like the age of these characters in the 90s. So, but I'd be thinking like, I gotta get my jog up. But
I
did you
think-
have to do anything like that?
You should have seen us during soccer practice. Let's just say we all had stunt doubles and it was all very fake acting. We
I've never
sorry,
been
but
so
no one
happy.
here is very athletic.
I was so happy.
That's
to
the
be-
only excuse me, you guys.
We always
Except
get that.
Listen,
Wow.
Because the gymnastic champion.
no, I was not a champion, but I was training and I loved doing the soccer rehearsals. And every time they put me in the mix, and I'm like, I had so much fun doing soccer. I wish it was on throughout the whole season. But I was still out of shape as much as the other people, like walking up the hills. But I have to say, I am a little bit more athletic than perhaps
Me.
My favorite
Dancing background.
Who are you looking at, Sophie?
Like a gazelle, and I had really good posture, and it just looked really off.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like take a bunch of actors. Like take a bunch of actors who probably all have like dance experience and put them on a soccer field, and we're all like kicking like this. It's like that. Yeah, that was a lot. Apart from
It's
that,
great because then Steven and I are just like, you know, like they're all running around and doing stuff, and we're just like, yeah, you're doing great.
I honestly found from a physical standpoint, I feel like just the sheer repetitiveness of coming in every day and putting on like the same dirty, smelly, like crusty clothes that we'd been wearing for weeks on end that of course they weren't going to wash. And then like
they washed it by the end. I think they kept it dirty.
this was just my clothes actually. And just like rolling around in the dirt. And I mean, like I've been saying in all these interviews, it's like, it's not like they built us a cushy soundstage with a fake forest, you know, where there was air conditioning. It was, you know, we were like out in the middle of the freaking woods with mosquitoes, and, you know, it was hotter than hell some days. Like there were a couple weeks in there when, you know, we had that heat wave that it was just brutal. That was, I mean, I feel like at the end of every week that we filmed, I was wiped out.
yeah, it was exhausting. It's like dusty and muddy, and like I don't know about you guys, but like just doing emotional scenes all the time, it takes so much out of you. And obviously like so much happens, like in every scene, there's one huge traumatic event, at least one person's crying all the time. And it just became like, I don't know, just so physically exhausting, even without all the running and exercise and stuff that some people did, not me.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that you said that the soccer scenes were more, when I talked about physical challenges, I thought they were talking about the actual scenes in the forest, because there's so many X factors, you know, when you're in the middle of the woods. As you were saying, there's the weather, there's the mosquitoes. Was there anything else during the production that kind of caused a surprise, pleasant or otherwise, while you were out there?
Well, they added like, I remember one day I had to like skin this deer or something, and they just came in with a bucket of like live maggots, and they're like, we're just gonna throw this on top of your hand. And that really, I don't like bugs. I don't like being dirty. And I was like, this is disgusting. And then your character, you have to like pretend you
did a great job.
Like into it. Or even when we had to eat all that fake meat, they would put like a bunch of product on it for it to look gooey and bloody. And yeah, Samantha did not enjoy that very much.
I'm vegan.
I was going to ask that question if any of you were vegetarian or vegan.
I'm
so you're
vegan
vegan. Anybody else?
A few people, yeah. Courtney,
Yeah, Courtney, Jasmin.
I was at the time. I eat chicken now. Sorry, Sam.
No, no. But I was like, I don't know why. I don't know if I was doing it to like make myself feel better or what, but like during the scene that Sophie was just talking about with the maggots, they were like putting like fake blood stuff over them. So me being me, I was like, I'm gonna save some of them. So I like put a handful of maggots in my hand and I ran away and I like put them on a log. And then I came back and then the guy who was like the maggot trainer was like, you know, you're messing up the what's it called? The environment,
the ecosystem. Yeah.
The ecosystem. And he was like, because, you know, now they're going to destroy the ecosystem. So then I felt bad. So then I went back and I got the maggots and I came back and I brought him back to him. So it was, yeah, that was my struggles.
Wow. I mean, just the fact that you said you had a handful of maggots around, I kind of just like checked out that just then. Just the thought of that is really
I tried to
a lot.
save them.
I get it. And that's admirable, but still, that's a lot. That's a lot. But let's talk about the fake meat, because I think a lot of people don't know what, I mean, people be looking at that scene and wondering what it is. So, I mean, what was it? Is it like a protein, a plant-based protein product? Do you guys know? Did they tell you what it was?
Still unclear.
Different for everybody.
They told us. There was like a couple different ones. There was like
Teriyaki something.
Mushrooms for some, Beyond Meat for others. Not tempeh. What's the other one?
Seitan.
Seitan for some, yeah.
But I know that when we filmed the pilot, I wasn't as vocal about my comfortability with veganism, and so they had me holding a plate full of bison, which is deer meat.
But you didn't eat it.
I didn't have to eat it, no, but I did hold it. And then I'm wearing something that's a bit difficult, and I tripped and I fell onto the bison meat, and I just was like, started crying. Holy Jasmin.
So let's review. You had a handful of maggots, and then you had a face full of bison. You kind
It's
of
not
went
where
through
it ends. You just have to watch the rest of the show, because that's not where it ends.
Okay. Oh
There's a lot
boy.
more. As the show goes on, there's kind of all these different, flavors and textures.
Different flavors. Yeah.
Different things that are happening.
Yeah, they slathered everything in barbecue sauce, which was a great idea for like the first 2 takes, and then
I liked it.
Yeah, for the first couple, and then like 10 takes in, you're like, oh god.
But
ugh.
We had a lot of spit buckets on this show.
A looby thing. Like, do you remember that? That was
I
supposed to look
remember.
like fat. Like
That was all
animal
Sophie.
fat. It was like lube.
I think we should probably move on.
No, it was
Yeah.
I'm getting like you guys. I'm getting like PTSD right now.
Well, that kind of leads me into my next question, by the way. So a lot of times when there are shows where there are a lot of very traumatic things going on within the script, within the action, the actors talk about going through a process of making sure that they don't take certain aspects of their characters home. And I'm wondering whether that was something that each of you had to do. There's a lot of strenuous scenes that you're going through that we have seen, and some people haven't seen yet. But what are some of the things that you did to just kind of delineate the difference between like, okay, we're done for the day, I need to decompress?
When we fully wrapped, I cut off my hair and dyed it pink. That was helpful. I think during shooting, one of the many great things about this cast is we're really goofy and we're very communicative and very good at just like communicating with each other and having a good time. So we could be shooting the most traumatic scene, like the plane crash, and as soon as they yell cut, someone's screwing around and making us all laugh, and we're being goofy and like letting it out that way on set, which was awesome. It was never too heavy, surprisingly, even during some really heavy scenes.
Yeah.
It helped that there were weeks in between too, because the older
That was
cast,
so helpful.
it really helped to like find grounding and then be like, oh, I have a life. I'm a person. I'm a human being. I'm not Natalie. And just remind yourself that and like focus on art or something else, or like talk to your friends. That's rare. And that was really nice. So I'm glad we had that.
Yeah.
Oh, and Aritzia.
Even though-
we all went to Aritzia on the weekend.
Aritzia, sponsor us.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is an Aritzia top. Who else
This
is
is an
wearing
Aritzia
Aritzia? Raise your hand.
There.
I wore one yesterday, but I have to say too, like one of the big helps was I have 2 guys' names to say, Cal, Adam. They're our ADs and just so incredibly kind, and it really like, it was, I don't know, something when you leave set and it's been like an exhausting day, and then you have these like really kind, friendly people being like, can't wait to see you tomorrow. You're like, yeah, like you're my friend, and it's so nice to like have that, you know, and you know, and then for me, like taking off the wig, taking off the glasses, getting the contacts taken out, like that whole process almost felt ritualistic by the end of it, because it was like literally saying like goodbye to Misty for the night, and like getting to put my clothes on and take off all of her, you know, goofy clothes. Like there was just something about cleaning up, and we all, I feel like, took very good care of our skin with like you know, our makeup department had like a full like, you know, all of our face washes, and some people were doing the steamer, and it was like really getting to take care of yourself at the end of the night. I think was very helpful to be able to like kind of put that away for the night, you know?
I feel like we all did such a good job too of taking advantage of the time that we had off, you know, like Sophie Thatcher was just saying, where it's like the nature of the show kind of allowed us this really crazy schedule where like we would work for a week and then they would go and shoot the older half of the cast. So we would be off for a week or sometimes even 2 weeks at a time. And like, we found ourselves, you know, in Vancouver, which is an incredible city in the summertime. And we really couldn't leave for the most part. And we really couldn't have very many people come visit us, if any. So we were kind of like trapped there with each other. And I feel like we did a great job of just kind of like getting out and exploring and like going on trips and, you know, meeting up at parks and the beach and like, you know, socializing. And that was rare. That was the first experience I've had on a show where it's like the cast all just kind of hung out together outside of work and actually got along and like didn't want to murder each other 4 weeks in.
Maybe 6
Well,
months.
Yeah.
I'm the only one that feels this way.
No, but it was a super intense, like immersive experience. I think, especially coming off the back of, you know, quarantining and isolating and everything, and then suddenly being surrounded by so many people all the time, every day. On top of the fact is, you know, we're all really homesick. We've all got like our own stuff going on. We're stuck in a place without our friends and family. I think that we are really lucky to have had the connection. I know like on every show that everyone finishes and they're like, oh, we're like a family now. It was the best experience. But I kind of feel like this one is actually true and different, just in the sense that like we spent so much time together and we still like each other, and that's insane.
So one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, Samantha, and this actually goes for everybody, is so in an earlier press conference, Christina admitted that she has a little bit of survivalist experience. And she said like, oh yeah, I could pull myself up off a cliff, things like that. And I wanted to know if she shared that with you and for everybody else. Does anybody else here have any survivalist experience coming into this? And do you have any desire to pick up some now that you're done with the first season?
I had no idea. I'm impressed. She did not share, and I will be calling her, asking her for all the tips. I feel like I've said this before and I'll say it again. I think I would definitely not survive very far because, you know, vegan, also allergic to like every food imaginable. So imagining me like out there being like, is this gluten-free? Like, is it soy-free? Like, you know, you don't get
Sam,
to
you
ask
barely
that.
survived on a set.
Yeah, I know, literally. So I feel like that. And then I've watched a lot of Naked and Afraid and I've watched a lot of Survivor. So like the like competitive side of me is like, I could do it. I'm, you know, but then like the realistic side of me is like, okay, I would get sunburn. I'd get heat stroke. I would not be feeling well. My stomach would be hurting and I'd want to go home. So yeah, anyways, not my thing. Anybody else?
No. What about you guys?
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I don't think I would survive either. I don't think Ella would either. Ella got heat strokes just going skating in the city.
Wow.
Wow. Shots have been fired and I have
Wow.
proof of that. Thank you. Sophie,
Sophie,
speak for
Nélisse,
yourself.
I feel like you would survive.
I would
You
be
would, like-
completely fine.
Ella, you think you would?
I don't know about completely fine.
Yeah, do tell.
I don't
Wow,
know.
rude. I'll have you guys know, I'm recently very into camping. I can now make a fire. I am pretty good at whittling. Been whittling a few things here and there.
I
That
watch
you
your
can
Instagram
whittle a
stories.
spear and then kill things with spears and eat them over a fire. I would be completely fine. I might have got heat stroke when I was roller skating, but that's because there was no shade. If I was in the wilderness, I would find shade and build shelter immediately. That's like the first thing you do, you guys.
Steven gave me his masterclass access, which I'm very grateful for. And on one of the classes, like a survival guide class taught by this like survival person. And I haven't actually watched it yet, to be honest. But if there's a season 2, I signed up for the class and I will watch it then. Or I should maybe just watch it in case something happens anytime soon. But yeah.
Dang. I would die.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about anything. I would die.
You would do
That's fine.
something.
Sophie too.
I
What
feel
about
like-
you?
Yeah,
I've
Thatcher,
lived
what about
pretty
you?
Yeah.
confident, and I think there's too much time alone with your thoughts. Go a little pretty fast.
But you know what you could do, Sophie? If you saw a tree, you could just cut the frickin' thing down.
There's a story behind that, I take it.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
Okay.
Somebody should probably tell
And
her.
it's going to stay in the vault. That's fine. That's fine.
Love you.
All right. So one of the things with, again, this is a series set in 1996. In 1993, there's a movie that came out called Alive. And I don't know if any of you saw that one, but that's about a rugby team that crashes in the Andes and manages to survive for 72 days. And part of it does involve them deciding whether or not to survive by eating their dead friends. If they made it for 72 days and seemed to come out and some of the survivors say in pretty good spirits, what is the difference with this team? That they came out and now they have 25 years later, things are starting to go wrong even then. And what's the difference?
Hard
Well,
to
I
say
think-
without spoilers, really.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I
Well,
mean,
let's say psychologically, like what do you think is the difference with the Yellowjackets? And I'm bearing in mind that some of you probably have not seen this movie, maybe none of you have.
I saw it.
And not like they came out saying like, "Yay, we're saved, let's have a party." Obviously, they were traumatized, but clearly in the first scene, we see that things have gone massively awry with what happened with the team, with the Yellowjackets. So what do you think is the difference psychologically here? What happened to them that might not, what is it about them that made them kind of go a little bit barbaric?
Well, this team has a Misty and has a Thaisa and a Jackie, and we're all just different. It's different people, different circumstances, different worlds. Our world is. Somebody else take over. I'm gonna.
I think there's a lot
Well,
to do with Lottie's character, and I think there's a lot to do with the fact that there are some other elements incorporated in the story aside from just survivalist. There's some, it's really hard to explain without spoilers, but I think what the writers have done a really good job of is having the characters question their reality and their existence and their sanity. And there's a lot more like psychological confusion and tension and thrill there, as well as the fact that they're out there for a really, really long time, a lot longer than 72 days. Jazz?
Yeah, I would also say that we don't know actually how the team of boys did when they got home, because the movie ends with them leaving. We don't get to see what happens to them later and the damages that come after a period of time. And also, like Ella said, they weren't out there for that long, and it was a group of boys versus a group of mostly women who've been out in the woods for over a year. And they were teenagers. I think that's one of the beautiful things about the show. It's examining the complex relationships between women. And there is so much there, as we all know. And being teenagers on top of that with the teenage angst and being in a traumatic situation and it being a really long time, there's a lot of ways that things can go wrong or get muddy.
Yeah, gender politics is very, very apparent in this show, even in the first few episodes. And let's talk about that, because I think a lot of times, especially recently, there have been a lot of conversations about how women relate to each other and how they're depicted on film in terms of rivalry and those things. So it's celebrated when there's female bonding, but then also it's kind of realistic that there can be tensions that are in a lot of ways related to gender. So I'm curious to know from each of you how you kind of see the series entering that aspect of the conversation. Like what does, to Jasmin's point, what does gender how does it influence what happens here in your point of view?
I mean,
Does it have, yeah, go ahead.
I kind of like how we always see like male characters doing bad things and it's okay, and the women are always like nice and pretty. And I love how in this one these women have flaws and do things that aren't okay. I mean, there is like, it's not a spoiler because it's in the first episode, but Jackie cheats on Shauna cheats on
Almost.
Jeff
You almost
cheats
got it.
on Jackie with Shauna. And I think that what I love about this show is that you root for these women even though they're not like the pretty stereotypical, and they have flaws and they're going to do bad things, and that's okay because women do these things as well. And it just shows how strong they are. And I think that's also why like the sentiment of guilt that will follow them for what they've done when they were younger is also, I think, why that trauma will last for so long afterwards.
Well put.
I also like the fact that like I had a lot of these questions when we were doing press yesterday, a lot of like male journalists asking like, we so often see women pitted against each other, and you would have thought the show would try to avoid those kinds of stereotypes. And I think that's kind of missing the point, is that complex, like Jasmin said, female relationships are complex and they're human and they're multidimensional and they're real. And I think that of course there's conflict, and because they're surviving in the wilderness and they're stuck together. It's a bunch of teenage girls with raging hormones. There's for example, Jackie and Shauna's relationship is so complex. There's codependency, there's lies, there's betrayal, there's the fact that they've been tied to each other since they were children and they're growing apart, they're growing together, their identities are changing. There's so much push and pull that comes with that. I think that the way women love each other is so fierce and so unbreakable sometimes that when there's a large group of them and so much of that energy put in one place, it can be really difficult. I mean, there's like so many aspects of this being a female-led show is like the first thing that piqued my interest in this show. I think the way that the writers create these relationships and explore those dynamics is really interesting, and we've had so many conversations about this on set as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think, go ahead, please go ahead.
I just remember like, so like, I mean, it's not a spoiler because it happens to us, all of us women, but like, I remember when we were sitting there reading one of the episodes, and it was like, all the girls have their periods. And I was like, we're talking about it. Like, that's so cool. I feel like I never watch a show where like they actually talk about like, I don't know, going through something like your period, which is like so simple to me. But like, I haven't watched a show where like I don't know why it was such a shock to see that in the script, but it was exciting to see it in the script. And personally, like I grew up my body hair, which like I've never, like have done for a role before, where it's just like certain things like that I'm like, yeah, like it's nice to be on a set where you're not like getting all glammed up. Like it's legit, it's happening. Because I feel like a lot of shows I'll see like, people going through it and all this stuff, but yet the girl still looks like very beautiful and very nice, and their legs looks very shaved, and they don't, whereas this was just, it felt very real and very human, and it was just, I liked that aspect of it.
If I could just add without getting like cheesy, I mean, I was obviously so fortunate to fall in this group of like amazingly talented people. I have never honestly ever learned so much about just watching other girls act, but also just like the sense of like we cheered each other on so much, and that for me was just so huge. So like there's this overwhelming sense of love on set that when we never felt like we were like competing against each other or trying to be the best one in the scene, or it just, every time I remember like from day one when we weren't on screen, we would like try to look behind the monitor, and then we would see like the face of Sophie Thatcher or anyone on screen. We're like, we would all cheer for her and be like, you're so beautiful. And literally after every scene, we would all like cheer of joy for like the person that had like the main attention in that scene. And that was very, it meant a lot for me.
I was going to say, because this is a survivalist drama, I feel like there's an inevitable breakdown of societal norms. And of course, society treats women differently. So to see them remove their masks and remove this, just the masks that teenage females put on was really interesting and creates a whole other level of complex story. I think that was something that was interesting to me too within having an all cast.
And also like choosing that as well, like who chooses
that and when it happens,
right,
and
like
when people lose it.
their legs and who chooses to grow their body hair
Yeah.
and who chooses to still wear makeup. Like when, they could have crashed with, I mean, I know that there are also like men in the show, hello, but they crash with mostly females. And it's like, how do you change when you're in a room of just women? Because when I'm in a room of just women, I'm completely different from when I'm in a room with men. And that's something that I'm aware of and that I'm actively working on. So it's like, how much does that also influence things? And then also something that I forgot is like, these women are athletes, they've been working together in this team for years. Like there's a certain type of camaraderie and supportiveness that comes with that on top of it, which is like a whole other level that we remembered and then we forgot and then we got back into it towards the end of the show. And I think maybe the audience will observe that, but we're like, yeah, an altercation that they have is more likely to get physical because A, of rising tensions, B, because they're used to grappling and touching each other and being up in each other's space in that way, which isn't something that we see with teenage girls often.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the soccer dynamic is very specific to, not both on the field, but taking it with you into the wilderness, I think is that was an important detail. And I'm wondering if that was something that in the script you were all kind of able to call upon during that time in the wilderness. And I mean, not only you, but also, Stephen, your character, like you have the leadership dynamic and then all of the different positions, in that you may be playing. Did that ever come into kind of the formulation of how your characters like handled this traumatic survival experience, or was that ever spoken about?
I think we maybe each considered that personally, but we didn't talk too much about it until, like Ella said, back at the end. And actually, Ella, when you said that just now, that made me think that the girls' experience in the woods probably mirrored our thinking about that dynamic, and that it started with these specific dynamics: who's the leader, who's not, the like physicality, and then went away for a minute because they were like, oh, we just experienced a tragedy, maybe let's soften up toward each other. And then when it was apparent that we're not going anywhere, those instincts came back. I think that's really fascinating.
I think it was actually for me something that was kind of central to Ben Scott's character arc, throughout the entire season. It's something I was really conscious of, where like at the very beginning, I mean, as soon as we crashed, people are kind of looking to, the one adult who has survived this, this plane crash as, hey, what do we do? Tell us the answers, all that kind of stuff. While I'm trying to deal with this traumatic injury. And then at the same time, like over the course of the season, people are going to see that power dynamic really starts to shift, like going from being ostensibly the leader and the authority figure to, guess what, I'm not anymore. By the time we get to the end of the season, it's like I've really, really, really shifted as far as the group dynamic goes. And I thought that was something that I really enjoyed kind of playing with throughout the season.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we're getting towards the end here, which makes me sad because I can talk about this show for hours. But I'm wondering, what is it that each of you is hoping that maybe people will take away from this first season, either about your character or about the show itself?
For me, it would be that people are multifaceted. I don't believe that you have good people and bad people. I believe that good people can do bad things and bad people can do good things. And that is what I love about my character and this show. And I think that this show really challenges those narratives.
Something the show did for me was it allowed me to re-examine my relationship with the closest women in my life, my closest relation, you know what I'm saying? And I hope that the show does that for other people too.
Either of the Sophies? You have two to choose from?
For me, for any project that I do, I hope that the audience can find solace within any of the characters. And because there's so many different types of people, I think the audience, there's so much to choose from and there's so much to connect to and there's so much to relate to. So I think that's inevitable. And I hope that people actually find solace and feel connected. But that's with any project. But I think specifically with this one, it'll be people will find their characters.
Yeah, I think that's what I love about this one is how complex everyone is and how unique everyone is. And you can only imagine what it would feel like or how you would react if you were in, that situation. But I think what's so great is that everyone reacts so differently and there's no right or wrong. And like Ella mentioned, it's not black and white. And when you're stripped out of like you know, the daily life and the importance of like standards and stuff, that's when your true personality shines. And I think that's what's really interesting to see how some people will bond and some people will go apart.
Yeah, I feel like
mine's like a broader perspective. I think mine's just like I love this show because of how it spans a number of different genres, and I don't think that a lot of shows are very successful at doing that. And I really do think that ours is very successful at doing that. So I kind of hope that this provides a little bit of a spark of creativity, you know, kind of throughout the television and film, that you can make shows that aren't just one thing, you know, and that appeal to a really wide-ranging audience, and hopefully people watch this and you know, it sparks something in them, and we get more products like this.
Yeah, I hope, honestly, I hope that everyone's sitting on the edge of their seat being like, what's going to happen next? My hope is that people are on the phone with each other or with each other and being like, okay, what do you think is going to happen next episode? That's what my hope is that people get just as excited as we do after reading each and every script and being like, what the hell is happening next? You know, like that's truly my hope, is that people get just as excited as we all did reading each and every script.
Where's the next one? Guys, why don't we have the next one yet? What is going on?
The group chat would be popping off every time.
Yeah, that's what I want.
And a certain someone always found out spoilers and would spread them through the group.
Who, me?
No.
Oh.
Guys, I have like a one-line breakdown.
I'm surprised nobody said, no, I was gonna say, I'm surprised that nobody else said something like learn how to make a fire, or this knot is bad, like learn how to tie this knot. Nobody like came out of the season
I
thinking
did
like,
think of something that I should have said, which is I did research after we wrapped, and the safest place to sit on a plane is the back row in the middle. That has the least fatality rate in a crash. So it's the one thing the show got wrong, because it was only the first class cabin, aka the front, where everyone survived.
I wouldn't say the one thing, but
But if you're
I learned
flying,
how to
sit
make
in the
a
back third. and
I
you'll
learned how to make a
survive.
sling out of a t-shirt. That was my one thing I learned how to do, like with a t-shirt. If anybody needs it, call me, beat me if you want to reach me.
Did you say beat me?
He's doing Kim Possible.
You know, Kim Possible.
Oh.
Yeah, thank you.
well, this is so much fun. Thank you. And one thing I've got to say that I took away is that there's so much empathy for each of these characters that I had even partway through the season, even knowing the worst that happens. So that is really a testament to each of your performances. So thank you so much for talking with me today about Yellowjackets. And I hope lots of people tune in and there's a lot of discussion after every episode. Thanks so much, everyone.
Same,
Thank you.
The question is, what really happened out there?
Like any hot-blooded one.
We scavenged. We starved. After they rescued us, I lost my purpose. I can't imagine what you guys went through out there.
I have simply wanted an object to crave.
Don't eat that kind. It's poisonous. Like kill you poisonous, or like trip your balls off poisonous.